Hi Year 11, it's Miss Saul from King Alfred's Academy again. I'm here to talk you through the rest of our Waggle speech about how to structure an effective persuasive argument. So if you remember last time we were looking at a Waggle that answered this question: young people should focus on education, school students should not be allowed to have jobs, write a speech to your school's governors in response to this statement. So we're picking a side. If you remember, the Waggle picked the side of arguing that students, especially in Year 11, should be allowed to have jobs, and talked about the benefits of that. So this video is going to talk you through the Logos section, which is the second section of the Waggle. And I'm going to ask you, if at all possible, to have the copy of the Waggle in front of you so that you can make annotations about what makes the Logos section, the second section, successful. Okay, and as I said before in the last video, feel free to pause me at any point so that you've got time to make your annotations. So if you remember, the Logos section of a persuasive argument is the logic. You can see the same root word there, the reasoning, the evidence behind why what you're arguing for is believable and valid. So in your Logos section, you need to provide the realistic evidence for your argument. If appropriate, what experts say to give your side of the argument more validation, more weight behind it. Look, people who spend their whole lives looking at this issue also agree with me. And then also what this actually demonstrates to your reader or audience. You have to explain your evidence. Never assume that they understand what you're demonstrating with statistics or facts or quotes. You then have to go on after you've provided those and explain what you're demonstrating with that. There's techniques, if you remember, that often work well here are statistics and facts and tricolon, but that doesn't mean that you're limited to those. It's just that these commonly are found in the Logos section. So the Logos section of our Waggle reads: statistically, the evidence speaks for itself. In 2017, according to the Ministry for Education, we saw a 32% rise in the number of Year 11 students suffering with mental health issues. Even the most hardworking and successful students complained of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem because of the pressure that they faced due to exams. Do you, who I am sure want school to be beneficial for all of its students, really want young people like me to feel this kind of pressure? If not, then give us a chance to have a life. Working during GCSEs can actually improve students' results, according to the headmaster of Wallingford, a secondary school near here. He states that many of our straight A students hold down jobs and have roles in the school production as well as revising for their exams. It helps them to have a balanced life and let off steam with their friends. Economically, this also makes sense. If adolescents can earn their own money, they are likely to feel more proud and independent. Not only does this help their self-esteem, it helps parents like you save money too. So, what have we done that is typical of a Logos section here? Well, first of all, I've provided some realistic evidence that is suggesting there is a problem, or it might be used to suggest how to overcome a problem. In this case, I'm suggesting there is a problem. So I've used these statistics in 2017 according to the Ministry for Education. So I'm quoting my source, if you like. I'm explaining where I've got this figure from. I haven't just plucked it from thin air. I've decided on something that sounds quite believable and reliable. We saw a 32% rise in the number of Year 11 students suffering with mental health issues. So here's an issue, here's the problem, and I'm going to propose that my side of the argument is going to provide the solution to this problem, okay? By allowing us to have part-time jobs outside of school, this will actually help with this problem. So that's the first thing that you do. The second thing then is to explain what the evidence you've just provided is actually demonstrating and show how this further supports your argument, okay? So I've said this shows even the most hardworking, successful students complained of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem because of the pressure they faced due to exams. So my evidence is showing us this, okay? So I'm not assuming that you've worked that out for yourself. And then I've then gone on to say, well, we don't want to put people under pressure like this. So if you don't want to, then we need to give them all a chance to have a life and a part-time job, because actually working part-time during GCSEs can actually improve students' results and health. Okay, so I've shown actually this evidence shows this issue, but if you agree with me, here's how we can overcome this issue. Okay, Finally, when appropriate, so you do not have to always do this. This is kind of your extension, if you like. You'll push yourself, but only when it works. You can support your point further with a sensible quote from a person that would be considered an expert on the topic. So an expert quote. The trick here is to ensure that you make it clear how they are an expert by giving their job title and perhaps even a description of what they do. Okay, and yes, in your exam, you would be making this up. So it's a question of, can you think of how to make something up realistically that sounds real? And if not, perhaps avoiding using expert quotes and sticking with facts and statistics instead for your evidence. That's sort of crucial, because otherwise the expert quotes don't sound very believable at all, and you'd be better off leaving them out at that point. So those are the sort of key parts to a logos. Okay, so then, of course, we've got the there's techniques that are being used in logos as well. And if you remember, I talked about statistics and facts being commonly used as one of the major forms of evidence, but also tricolon. And actually, there's a couple of others that are also being used in this paragraph. So first of all, then we start with statistics and facts. In this case, we've used a statistic to demonstrate the increase in mental health issues among young people, to show that they need something to help them overcome these issues, e.g. a job, so they focus on something more than just schoolwork. So we're providing a statistic here in order to demonstrate that there is an issue, that if you only force students to focus on their exams 24/7 and you don't let them have a part-time job or anything like that, then actually there is an issue with mental health. So that furthers your argument, because you then go on to explain how you need to give them some variety, therefore we need to allow them to have part-time jobs still. So that's our statistics and facts. Then we've got our tricolon. In this case, in the sentence, even the most hardworking, successful students complained of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem because of the pressure they faced due to exams. So here we've got the tricolon, the three words and descriptions in a row, used here to emphasize the mental health issues students can be faced with when they focus solely on their exams. So again, it's emphasizing the problems that a part-time job could overcome. So it's presenting the problem in a way that means that when we suggest part-time jobs should be allowed, we're offering a solution to this problem. Okay, so that's how the tricolon's been used. Okay, so then we've got a rhetorical question in this paragraph as well, which reads, do you, who I am sure want school to be beneficial for all of its students, really want young people like me to feel this kind of pressure? So this is designed to emotionally manipulate the listener into giving the answer you want, because they don't want to be accused of making young people feel pressure and anxiety, which could be damaging to their mental health. So straight away, if you phrase it in such a way as, do you really want people to feel this way? Well, clearly you can't really say yes, because that's detrimental to their health. It's bad for their health. And so you're manipulating them to feel sorry for the students and to give you the answer that you want, even in their head. Obviously, we're not expecting them to verbally answer. So this is how a rhetorical question's effectively used. And in this case, it's kind of questioning the statistic that I've just provided and said, is this statistic okay with you, basically? And obviously the answer should be, no, it's not. So here's what we need to do. We need to let them have part-time jobs, etc. Okay. And then finally, the extension, if you remember, I mentioned, where appropriate, to use an expert quote to make your point that you're making seem even more believable. So quoting their argument, quoting what they would say word for word, and showing how it then therefore supports your point. Remember always to show how and why they are an expert through their job title. So in this case, I've shown that this person is the expert because I've said he is the headmaster of Wallingford School, which is a secondary school near here. And then I've quoted a statement that he's made, which supports my point. Now, I've made this statement up, obviously, because I, would have been in exam conditions, but I've made sure it sounds realistic and something that a headmaster would really say. So he states that many of our straight A students hold down jobs and have roles in the school production as well as revising for their exams. It helps them to have a balanced life and let off steam with their friends. So what he's saying is supporting the points I've made above that, which is actually, if you want to relieve this kind of pressure, we need to let students do more than just study. Okay, so those are the there's techniques. Finally, finally just wanted to point out to you the mature viewpoint phrases. So as you know, as we talked about in the ethos paragraph, there are some that are quite useful to start you off in the different sections of ethos, logos, pathos, conclusion. And for logos, the one that starts statistically, the evidence speaks for itself, is quite a good one because it indicates immediately to your reader or to your listener that you are now going to provide evidence for your argument. Just a quick reminder, if you're not going to provide a statistic straight away, don't start with the word statistically. You can literally just start with the evidence speaks for itself and then introduce the evidence. I've also got one towards the end. Economically, this also makes sense. And again, it's useful only when it works in the right context. So if you're talking about something that could have an impact on finances, but showing that you've considered how it might be financially beneficial to allow people to do what you're arguing for, shows you've got a bigger understanding of the positive effects of what you're suggesting. So you're thinking not just how it affects you, but everyone around you as well, and possibly even in the whole country. So those are mature viewpoint phrases, and that's basically logos, okay? It's the most factual of all the ones, of all the sections in your persuasive argument. So that's the end of this video, talking you through logos. The next video will talk you through both pathos, which is the third section of persuasive writing, and the conclusion, which is the fourth and final section of the waggle. So I will see you in just a moment on that video. Okay.